Mission Viejo, welcome to Kelly Light.
Thank you. So hello everybody, how are you today? Good, it's so lovely to be here and it's nice to meet you. So I am Kelly Light and I am an author and an illustrator. Do you guys know what an author is? Right? Well, I'll let you guys ask questions in the end, but I will say an author is a person who writes the words, right? An illustrator is a person who draws the pictures, right? Well, I did both. I did both for Louise Loves Art. I wrote all the words and I drew all the pictures. So Louise Loves Art is about a little girl who loves to draw. She loves to create. She loves to get her imagination on the outside. She loves to draw. She's always really busy. And she doesn't notice she happens to have a little brother who gets into her stuff. Does anybody here have a little brother or sister? Do they get into your stuff? Yes. And Louise's little brother, who kind of gets into her stuff, he just happens to be named Art. So Louise loves to make art, but she also kind of loves her little brother, even though he can be a little bit annoying. So I loved to draw as a kid, and I loved cartoons, and I loved cartoon characters. And I love to make art and look at art and think about art and learn about all different kinds of art all over the world and the artists who make art. I loved it then and I love it now. Does that sound like anybody that I mentioned before? A little girl who loves art? You can say it. Sounds like Louise, doesn't it? It does. So what do you do when you really love art? You work really hard and you get really good grades so that you can go off and go to art school. And I did that. I went off to art school and I went off with big hair and big dreams because it was the 1980s. And I worked really hard and I studied both illustration and animation. And when I graduated, the day that I graduated, I packed up my car. I packed up all my art supplies. And I packed up my pet bunny rabbit, whose name was Yahooey, and she rode on the seat next to me in her cage, and we drove from New York all the way to here, to California. Hollywood. Me and my bunny rabbit, we arrived in Hollywood because I wanted to make cartoons, and I did that. I actually got a job working on The Simpsons. So right when I was out of college, I worked on The Simpsons, and I worked on the very first Coca-Cola polar bear commercials. But the closest that I ever got to working for Disney was I had to pay my rent, so I took a job at the Walt Disney store. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I started to miss home and miss my family and miss everybody back in New York. So I moved back to New York City. So I grew up in New Jersey, but then I moved to New York City. And I thought in New York City I could keep making cartoons. But I had a lot of trouble finding work. There weren't a lot of animation studios. So I was working at this tiny animation studio one day, and the phone rang at my desk. And I answered the phone, and the voice on the phone said, "Can you draw Bugs Bunny?" What do you think I said? Yes. Can I draw Bugs Bunny? I have been drawing Bugs Bunny since I'm 5 years old. I can draw Bugs Bunny. So I took a job working for a new place called the Warner Brothers store. And we drew Bugs Bunny and the Tasmanian Devil and Tweety and Sylvester and Daffy Duck on all kinds of things like t-shirts and mugs and sheets and towels, all the things that they sold in the store, they needed drawings for. So I did that. So I was drawing one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time. And I did a really good job and I worked really hard. And then one day, the phone rang and it was Peanuts. And they said, "Can you draw Snoopy?" And what do you think I said? Yes. Can I draw Snoopy? Yes. I have been drawing Snoopy since I'm 5 years old. I can totally draw Snoopy. One day, after working really hard on Bugs Bunny and Snoopy, Disney called. And they said, can you draw Mickey Mouse? And what do you think I said? I can so draw Mickey Mouse because I have been drawing Mickey Mouse since I'm 5 years old. So this is the kind of stuff that I do for Disney. And I can still do this for Disney now. I'm still under contract with Disney. And these pieces of art, they go on things like popcorn tubs and cups. And they're at the theme parks right now, which is really crazy because if I go down there and I get popcorn, I'm like, oh, look, I drew this. So after doing that for a lot of years, I started to feel like I wanted to create something that was all mine. So I got married and I had a baby. So that's when I had my daughter Maggie. And I call her my masterpiece. So I was Maggie's mom and I stayed home with her for a couple years. When she was a little baby until she was 5 years old, I stayed home. And I started to think, I want to create my own characters. And I want to write my own stories. So I started to write these stories down. And I started to do a lot of art. And I put all of that art into a suitcase for art. Do you know what a suitcase for art is called? It's called a portfolio. And that's how illustrators show their work. They put all of their art into a portfolio. And then we drag it all around New York City. And we show it to anybody who will look at it. So I took my portfolio of art all around New York City for 6.5 years to all of the children's book publishers that there are. There's like 10 big children's book publishers in New York City. And do you think they said, hey, you want to make a book? No. No, they didn't say yes at all. They kind of said, no, thank you. No, 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 no. They said, you're a little too cartoony for children's books. So one day in my studio, about 7 years later, the phone rang, and it was a publisher called HarperCollins. And the voice on the other side of the phone said, can you draw dogs? And what do you think I said? Yes. Can I draw dogs for a publisher? I've been waiting my whole life and 7 years to draw something for a publisher. So this was a test. It was a test. They were trying to see if I could draw the right kind of dog. So I could stand out, I thought, if I made characters. It was always for me about making characters. So I didn't draw just a dog sitting. I created characters. I created surfing dogs. And I sent in this drawing, this one drawing, and I got my first job as an illustrator. The very next day, the phone rang, and it was another publisher called Bloomsbury. And they said, can you draw quirky people? And what do you think I said? Yeah. Can I draw quirky people? Absolutely. I'm a quirky person. I can draw quirky people. So my first 2 illustrating jobs were illustrating books that I did not write. I was just the illustrator. But there's a series called The Quirks. And there's a series called Elvis and the Underdogs. And I got to illustrate these books. And it was so much fun. I loved it. I got to design the characters. I got to do all the story illustrations. But I started to draw this little girl. Now, she was a little girl who kind of loved art. She loved art so much. It was all she ever thought about. I was watching my daughter fall in love with art, and I knew how much I loved art. So I started to draw her, and I drew her on every scrap of paper, just like when I was a kid. If I had any scrap of paper, I would draw Louise. And that top drawing where it says, I love it, that's the very first drawing that I ever did of Louise. This is how I work on all my little scraps of paper. I also wrote 2 lines. I wrote, I love art. I just said that a million times, right? I love art. I wrote it down. I love art. And then I thought, it's my imagination on the outside. And I wrote it down, and I took this very first drawing of Louise, and that I also took those 2 sentences, and I put them on a postcard. Now, because I live in Long Island, and New York City is right next door, if I mailed that postcard one day, it arrived in New York City the very next day. The very next day after I mailed this postcard, my phone rang all day. My emails went bing, 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 all day. every publisher in New York, all the big 10 publishers all called. And they said, can you make a book with this little girl? And what do you think I said? Yes. First I fell off my chair. And then I said, yes, I can totally make a book with this little girl. So that's what I did. I started in the year 2012 to make the first Louise book. And this is how they start, in tiny little drawings. These drawings are called thumbnails. They're about this big. And they're called thumbnails because they're not that much bigger than your actual thumbnail. So you do hundreds and hundreds of these. And then you start to see the story come out. And when I like them, I blow them up and I hang them on my ceiling. And because my ceiling is in the top of my house, sometimes the drawings fall off and hit me in the head. So these are some of my scribbly sketches. I do way more drawings than go in the book. A picture book usually has 32 pages, but I had to do at least 300 drawings. So these are some of the drawings, and I draw, just like when I was a kid. I draw on every scrap of paper. I draw Louise in all kinds of poses. I draw the sketch, and then when I decide I like the sketch, I clean it up and I add color. I draw a little art in all kinds of poses. I draw the cat in all kinds of poses. And then, in the finished book, the very first drawing I ever did of Louise got into the book, along with those 2 sentences, I love art, it's my imagination on the outside. So in the book, I've hidden lots of little details in the background. Like there's lots of baby pictures of Louise and her little brother Art. There's a teapot clock that's in my kitchen. There is a hermit crab named Herman. Now, anybody here ever have hermit crabs? No? Good, because they're kind of stinky. So my brother and I, we had hermit crabs. We had 15 hermit crabs in a big aquarium-looking thing. And they were stinky. But we couldn't tell them apart, so we named them all Herman. So I put Herman the hermit crab in the book. And I also put a cookie jar that my grandparents had on top of the refrigerator. And my other grandparents had a cuckoo clock. Do you know what a cuckoo clock is? Yes. So a cuckoo clock is supposed to cuckoo at every hour and then at every half hour. But my grandparents had a broken cuckoo clock. And it cuckooed every 5 minutes, every 7 minutes, every 12 minutes, every 16 minutes. So we would be eating dinner and you'd hear cuckoo, and then a few minutes later you'd hear cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. So it was a lot of fun, and I always thought about that. So I gave Louise a cuckoo clock, but because she's an artist, she didn't just get a cuckoo clock, she got a Parisian artistic cuckoo clock. It is called the Clock de Cuckoo. So in the book, the cat poses for Louise. He poses so that she can draw him. And the poses that he takes, some of them are from famous works of art. This pose right here, right, where the cat's going like this is from a famous sculpture, which is called The Thinker. And some of the other poses are from famous works of art too. So Louise is now a series. So there are lots of Louise books, and I am working on the second book right now. I'm finishing it. And in the second book, she gets a new neighbor who moves in next door. And she is also an artist. And Louise is so excited to meet her new neighbor, whose name is Andy. And she's kind of loosely based off of a famous artist named Andy Warhol. Now, Louise is an artist who draws with her imagination, but Andy is a totally different kind of artist. And they don't see things the same way, and they have to learn that it's okay to see things differently, and you can still be friends. And Andy moves in with her own pet. It's a hairless dog named Bacon. So this is when they move in next door, when they first meet, and they're moved by modern movers, which is like modern art, and their tagline is, "We'll move it, and then you won't recognize what it was." And even the Realty is a name of an artist. It's Rothko Realty, which is another famous artist. So that's Andy. So she is the character in the second book. And that's a quote from Dr. Seuss, which says, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" So there'll be other Louise adventures too. I think in another book, they're gonna go to a museum. Louise thinks all great artists bring their art to the museum and hang it up. But when she gets there, she realizes you're not allowed to hang up your art in a museum. So Little Art will hang it up for her. And then I think we'll go to art class in school, and we'll get to meet all the other kids that she goes to school with, and Louise will put on an art show. For some reason, there's a kid with an octopus in a box. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So there's going to be lots more Louise stories. So Louise Loves Art. So this is the first book. When I finished it, I had the idea that I hadn't animated anything since I left and I went to work doing cartoon art for the Warner Brothers store. And I really wanted to animate Louise. So I decided to make a book trailer. You guys know what a movie trailer is? It's a commercial for a movie. So a book trailer is a commercial for a book. So I decided that I would animate Louise and make a commercial. So if we can hit play on the slide, you'll see Louise and she falls down. This is called a pencil test. A pencil test is just the pencil drawings. And when you animate, you do lots of drawings with tiny changes. And when you film them, they look like they move. So can you say the word Mississippi? Mississippi. It takes 1 second to say the word Mississippi. Can you say it again, Mississippi? Mississippi. That just took 24 drawings. Can you imagine that? Here's Louise on her floor of her bedroom and she's drawing. I can't even remember how many drawings that took. But it was really exciting. It was the first time I had animated in a long, long time. And when I finished all the pencil drawings, I got to choose music, I got to have a friend do a voiceover, and I got to put color in it, and I got to make my own cartoon. So can you hit play?
Meet Louise. Louise loves art more than anything. It's her imagination on the outside. She is determined to create a masterpiece, her pièce de résistance. Louise also loves art, her little brother. This is their story. Louise Loves Art is a celebration of the brilliant artist who resides in all of us.
The book now. I will read the actual book to you. When I am done reading you the book, we are going to have a special treat. We have Emily Arrow here. She is a musician, and she wrote a song that is inspired by the book Louise Loves Art, and it's really great. So I'm going to read the book, and then Emily's going to do a song for you. So we will start on the cover. Louise Loves Art by me, Kelly Light. So the story starts on the end pages. When you first open the book, the end pages are red, but we see the cat, and the cat is peeling back the red, and we see Louise, and she's doing her favorite thing in the whole world. She's drawing. And then we see her, when we turn the page, in her bedroom, and she is drawing. She has been so busy drawing. There's drawings all over the floor, and there's drawings all over the wall. She's so busy drawing, she doesn't notice who is peeking in the doorway. Can you see? Who's peeking in the doorway? Art. Art. Somebody notices, even though Louise doesn't notice. Who notices on the bed? The cat. And then Louise says, I love art. It's my imagination on the outside. And she says, so little time, so much to draw. One of these drawings will be my masterpiece. The greatest drawing I have ever done. And she's so busy sharpening her pencil, she doesn't notice what Art has done. He's picked up the crayon and he's drawn on her picture. But somebody notices. Who? The cat. So Louise says to be a great artist, you have to notice everything. You have to notice every line, every curve. And she says, wait, hold that pose. I will capture your catness. Then she says, I've done it. So fierce, so feline, so fantastic, a masterpiece. And little Art goes, Louise. She says, not now, Art. I have to get ready for my show. She's so busy running out her bedroom door, she doesn't notice what Art has picked up. Oh! But somebody notices. Out in the hallway, Louise says, I have to hang each picture just so. She doesn't notice from the bedroom, Louise. But the cat's going, meow, 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 meow. Downstairs, Louise comes down the stairs and hangs up her art, and it says, this way to the Art. Past Herman Hermit on the radio, and little Art, who's going, oh, wait. Louise says, it's my pièce de résistance, which is French for the greatest thing ever. And I know the perfect spot for it. The gallery du fridge. She's so busy looking for the perfect spot, she doesn't notice what does Art have. The masterpiece. But the cat notices, and the cat's going, Arr! And you turn the page, and uh-oh. What's happening? And the cat's going, turn around, turn around. And then, oh, Louise! And the cat goes, oh. Because he knows that Louise is going to turn around and say, ah! Art! How could you? It's my drawing, my masterpiece. Art says sorry. But Louise picks up what Art has made. And she looks really closely at it. And she sees that he's made cutouts of him and her and him and her and him and her. So she thinks. And she says, oh, Art, I love it. And the cat goes, whew. She says, it's your masterpiece. And I know the perfect spot for it. Voila! And she put it on the gallery du fridge. And she gave it her blue ribbon from the art show. And if you look really close up on the gallery du fridge, there's what's left of the masterpiece. It looks like modern abstract art now. And then they draw all together, Louise and Art and the cat. Yeah. And the cat is drawing a fish and a ball of yarn and a bird and a hairball. And then we see Louise peels back the red, and there's Art, and he is drawing the cat. And then they all draw together. The end. Yay! Yay! So now we are going to have a special treat, and we are going to listen to Miss Emily Arrow, and she is going to sing a song.
Hi, guys. Hi. Did you love that story? It's one of my favorites, and I wrote this song about it. At the beginning, I'm going to need you to help me by being a cat. Can you show me what your cat's going to look like? Awesome. Here we go. Louise tells her cat to make a pose. Make a cat pose. Awesome. Louise wants to have an art show. Louise draws a feline masterpiece. Ooh-wee, can you draw like Louise? Can any of you draw? Do you like to draw? Awesome. Here's the next part. Louise needs a spot to hang her art. thinks she knows the perfect spot. Where is it? Do you remember? On the fridge, yep. Louise wants to share her masterpiece. Ooh, can you draw like Louise? Now copy everything I sing. So much to draw, so little time. Every little curve, every little line. So much to draw, so little time. Louise loves art, and so do I. Now here comes her brother. Louise's little brother named Art can make art too. Louise's little brother had scissors he wanted to use. He chopped her drawing up and said, what did he say? Louise! Let's all say it like little Art. Louise! Ooh, she said, now it's your masterpiece. So much to draw. Beautiful, so little time. Every little curve, every little line. So much to draw. So little time. Louise loves art, and so do I. Now can you draw anything you want in the air while I whistle? Draw anything you want. Louise loves art, and so do I. Now try and clap with the ukulele. Here we go. So do I, so do I. My imagination on the outside. So do I, so do I. My imagination. So much to draw. So little time. Every little curve, every little line. So much to draw. So little time. Louise loves art, and so do I. Awesome.
How about another big hand for Emily Arrow?
Thank
and her
you.
song.
And a round of applause for Kelly.
Thank you. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for being great listeners. I want to leave you with one thought. So I love art, and Louise loves art. But maybe you love cooking or dancing or science or astronomy or sports or insects or rocks. Maybe there's something that you really, really love. So just like I love art and I continue to love art my whole life, whatever it is that you love now, you can love it your whole life. And you can continue to do it forever and ever and ever. Yeah. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the Mission Viejo Library. I want to thank Whale of a Tale for having me. And I hope you guys go home and you pick up your pencil and you draw. So thanks so much.